So as the North Korea-Russia summit wrapped up on Thursday, eyes are on what's ahead for future denuclearization talks involving North Korea and the U.S., as well as inter-Korean relations. Now, for more on this, we're now joined by Professor An Jun-seong of Yonsei University Graduate School of International Studies. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right, so first and foremost, what came out of the meeting in regards to the denuclearization talks between the U.S. and North Korea? And do you think possibly yesterday's summit was enough to move those stalled talks forward?
Well, I guess the answer to that question is yes and no, because then when you say yes means that we'll send clear message to Donald Trump, and however, and also it put President Putin on the driver's seat, so that now it's the center kind of shifting because that balance a little bit shifting. I think that's what the Kim Jong-un wanted it, try to shift the balance. And when I say no, means that there was no substantive, deal made from last night, yesterday's deal. I mean, the bilateral talk, and just what we actually expected because it's very short meeting, and most people did not expect much substance from out of it. Right?
And then also we heard earlier in our newscast how North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said it will depend entirely on U.S. when it comes to lasting peace and security on the Korean Peninsula. What can we get out of that?
Actually, it's very interesting comment. Actually, when you actually see that the press, the coverage about the banquet, and I think Kim Jong-un was quote that North Korean, the saying that we can move, the mountain if we work together. It sounds like you have a common enemy, we have common interest. Let's work together. I think that's a very strong message to the U.S. government that if you do not cooperate with us, we will find our new way. I think there's a very clear message to the U.S. government.
All right. Then, following yesterday's summit, how willing do you think Russia is in its willingness to provide more economic and political support to North Korea, especially when it comes to UN sanctions against North Korea?
Actually, before we answer the question, I think we have to briefly talk about the brief history about the bilateral relations between two countries. And it was actually surprising to most people. Russia, unlike China, Russia is no longer military ally to North Korea, because then after the collapse of former Soviet Union, and the Russian government unilaterally terminated their bilateral treaty with North Korea in 1996. That really a big blow to the North Korean regime.
Definitely.
And that's why their relations has been really worsened for a while, and then Putin come back and forth. And then the last meeting between two countries was that between the Kim Jong-un's late father, Kim Jong-il, and then President, Dmitry Medvedev, right? And that time, actually, so the answer to your question is that most of the issues they discussed in 2011 is very similar to what they discussed yesterday.
Okay.
So not much, change. They talk about the railroad, and then I think the change was that about North Korean workers. I think he during his press conference yesterday, President Putin mentioned that specifically mentioned about North Korean workers in Russia, and I think it sounds like he do something, special for them. And he didn't really clarify how we do it, but he will mention specifically talk about specific workers issue. I think they will do something there.
All right. So kind of going along with that, what were some of the other bilateral economic projects that they possibly discussed?
Yeah, I mean, the railroad issues also, I think actually he did not talk about the issues, but there was a special economic zone that we discussed for like decades actually for a while, and I think they will discuss it. And if I'm the Putin, I wouldn't talk about something very specific issues, because that might be political. Also, whatever they want to do, they have to concern about the UN sanction, right?
Right.
So they have to do some technical work, how they can, bypass any of the regulation, international regulations, right? That's the issue. They need to discuss it, and then they will do it. I mean, if they have some, right?
All right. So the U.S. definitely comes into the picture now, because President Putin said that he's willing to share the details of his summit with Kim Jong-un with the U.S. And we know that we're hearing of reports that President Donald Trump is actually looking to strike a nuclear deal with Russia and China. So like you said before, we're definitely seeing a rise in Russia's influence in all this. So what can we make of this?
Actually, frankly speaking, I don't think that Russia will play a big role in this game. But I think the reason that North Korea chose Putin was that, if you look at U.S. domestic politics, to Donald Trump is that Russian scandal is the term Russian itself is a big pressure actually. So whenever we hear about Russian government, who were very upset about whatever saying. So it's not about the truth. It's more like showing kind of show up, right? Show them that we have some new friend, also superpower, and whatever he said, I'm sure that Donald Trump will listen to Putin carefully because he can say very interesting about whatever happened in domestically in the United States, right? Politics. So I think that North Korean government was thinking about maybe using the Putin so pressure, Trump in a different way.
All right. Then, I mean, what's the likelihood of us possibly seeing the resumption of six-party talks that it's involving the U.S., China, Russia, North Korea, South Korea, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I watched actually the actual interview about 19 minutes, and he talked about at the last minute. He talked about I think he mentioned several times international law, and then the last minute he said a six-party talk. Well, he didn't really emphasize six-party talk. Six-party talk is one of the example of the international law, and they want the regime guarantee under the international framework. So it's very interesting from my perspective that North Korea traditionally prefer bilateral talk with U.S. government. But suddenly now, from yesterday and from the Kim Jong-un, according to Kim Jong-un, they now, I would say more correctly, according to Putin, right? So now they're changing their approach.
Right.
Now it's a multilateral. Yeah, that's very interesting. So I guess it's when you use a negotiation strategy. I guess that Kim Jong-un, after the failure at the Hanoi talk, he changed his strategy, saying pressure him under multilateral pressure on U.S. government. It's very interesting. The same strategy U.S. government used to use it traditionally, right? So,
right.
Right.
Well, now, timing-wise, I think it's interesting because Mr. Putin is in Beijing to attend the Forum on One Belt, One Road initiative, and of course, he's going to hold a summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. So, what can we expect on this front?
I guess. Actually, I mean, in terms of understanding about China and Russia, they're kind of they compete each other for many issues. And if you see North Korean issue, North Korea share a border, not only China, also Russia.
Right.
Very, very small, but still they have they're sharing. And plus, look at the location of their summit meeting. They meet at the border, close to the border to North Korean border. So they be sending a clear message to the Xi Jinping, saying, well, we share a border too, right? So we will jump into the issue. And from Chinese government, I don't think they appreciate it because they want to control the Far East, right? But the Russian government tried to interrupt it. I don't think they appreciate it. But still, I think from North Korean perspective, in terms of international politics, they prefer more balanced approach rather than really too much dependent on a single country, such as China, will be risking more, in terms of their national security.
Yeah, it's definitely a complicated power game and relationship involving North Korea with China and Russia, but we'll have to keep our eyes on what comes out of the Putin-Xi Jinping summit. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.